Outliers. We should always be aware of the presence of any outliers, particularly because they can have very dramatic effects on results. Test for the effects of outliers by applying statistical methods with these outliers included and then a second time with outliers excluded. Outliers should be investigated because they may be the most important characteristics of the data and they may reveal critical information about the data. Discard outliers only if they are identified as being errors. Example 2. Using StatCrunch to draw a normal quantile plot. Sample data for the arrival delay times in minutes of airlines are given. You want to determine whether they appear to be from a population with a normal distribution. We want to assume that this requirement is loose in the sense that the population distribution need not be exactly normal, but it must be a distribution that is roughly bell-shaped. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at 6.5.9-T. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this problem here. Okay, so here is the data. We want to try and find out whether this requirement of a normal distribution is satisfied. So what we want to do is we first want to find out what does the histogram look like, and then we want to create the normal quantile plot. So let's open up this data set, and then after we open up the data set, we're going to open this up into StatCrunch. So you can first take a look at here is all the data in this column. So we want to first create the histogram. So we're first going to select histogram. We're going to select our column. We have our frequency, and then we can just go ahead and then select compute. So here is our histogram. I'm going to go ahead and then copy that into our problem there. Okay, so here's our histogram of this data. So you can see what the histogram looks like. Okay, now since we have the histogram, now what we want to do is we want to create a QQ plot of the data. So we want to take a look at the histogram. So here, when we go to StatCrunch, we're going to select Graph, QQ plot, select the desired data column, and then we're going to go ahead and graph that. So let's go ahead and do that. So now that we have this, okay, we're going to go ahead and select Graph, go down to QQ plot, and then we're going to select variable 1, and then we're going to select compute. So let's go ahead and then copy that, and then we're going to examine what that graph and what the histograms tell us. Okay, so before any problem that you're going to see later on in this for the next later chapters, you want to identify whether this graph and this histogram satisfies a normal distribution. Well, let's take a look at the histogram. If we take a look at the histogram and trace around that histogram, you can see that it comes up here and then it's still kind of high, and then what's going to happen is it's going to skew right. So therefore we can say that this is skewed right. Well, this doesn't look like a normal distribution because it has to be approximately bell curve. If you look at the data over here, this data has some points out here. It doesn't show a pattern that is a straight line pattern. So in this case here, what we would say is the following. Is the requirement of the normal distribution satisfied? We would say no, because the histogram of the data is not bell-shaped, and there is more than one outlier up here. And the points in the normal quantile plot do not lie reasonably close to a straight line.